Today we're looking at, as advertised, Jeroboam, but I figured there's probably going to be a little bit of room at least to throw somebody else in there, which alphabetically was going to be Jezebel. Now we I sort of lumped Jezebel in with Ahab earlier this year, but I don't think we really talked a whole lot about Jezebel actually in that. I just kind of put them together because they kind of go together, like peas and carrots, as Forrest Gump would say. But we'll take a few minutes at least to look a little bit more at her. She's a pretty notorious figure, and not for good reason. I don't think a single good thing could be said about her, unless she happened to be very beautiful. I guess that would be, by some standard, a good thing, but whenever you're the kind of woman she was, physical beauty doesn't do a whole lot of good for you. So in the end. But first, Jeroboam. Jeroboam was one of the kings of the divided kingdom of Israel. He was actually the first, of the kings of the part that broke off from Judah, arguably a key player in the breaking of that kingdom, of Solomon's kingdom. He had some help from Solomon's son Rehoboam, who has no relation to Jeroboam, which I know is confusing. They both are, their stories intertwine, their names rhyme, so it's almost like, what are they, twin brothers or something? You know, what's going on here? No, they're not. They're not brothers at all, or in any sense related. But Jeroboam, sort of capitalized on Rehoboam's stupidity in following the advice of some of his younger whippersnapper friends to increase the taxes and the hardships on the people of Israel instead of lighten it when Solomon died. And that sort of caused, that made the kingdom ripe to fall apart. And Jeroboam was sort of the leader in that movement. So he became the king of what is sometimes called the 10 tribes, the king of the 10 tribes, which the 10 tribes are the tribes besides Benjamin and Judah. So that's what the 10, anytime you hear about the 10 tribes, the lost 10 tribes, sometimes they're called, although they're not lost. They never were, really. It's the other tribes besides Benjamin and Judah. Benjamin and Judah are kind of, they weren't connected. I mean, they were connected territorially, but not within one another. But they kind of went together, so they stayed together for whatever reason. But Jeroboam's legacy has to be that he was the man who made Israel sin. The reason that's his legacy, which he did by his political policies, by the way, which makes it extremely applicable for all time, but the reason that's his legacy is because 21 different times in the Old Testament, Jeroboam is called or referred to as the one who made Israel sin. So I won't say it's every time his name is brought up subsequent to his part in the narrative, but almost every time. That's his epitaph. Jeroboam, who made Israel to sin. It just, those two things go together. 21 times. Yeah, Joe.
Well, when you look at his name, Jeroboam cared more for what people thought than what God thought. And in many ways, that's where we lose people doctrinally, because they care more what other people want, and they compromise when you cannot. I mean, the least you got to say for Rehoboam, at least he worshiped God the way God told him to. He just didn't know how to deal with people.
Yeah. Jeroboam, he didn't just spring out of nowhere. Solomon recognized his abilities, and he made him he promoted him. So 1 Kings 11:28 says, "The man Jeroboam was very able. And when Solomon saw that the young man was industrious, he gave him charge over all the forced labor of the house of Joseph." So he had been elevated. Jeroboam was a servant of King Solomon. But then, when Solomon, I guess before Solomon even died, Jeroboam kind of got a little too big for his britches. And it says that, let's see, in verse 29, "At that time when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem, the prophet Ahijah," I say he was getting too big for his britches, maybe within himself, but at any rate, as a result maybe of this, it says the prophet Ahijah found him on the road, and it says he laid a hold of this new garment that he had, and he tore it into 12 pieces, and said to Jeroboam, "Take 10 of these pieces." This is a prophecy of the kingdom splitting, and 10 pieces out of 12. That's a huge portion. Not 5 and 5. 10 and 2. He says, "Behold, I'm about to tear the kingdom from the hand of Solomon, and I'll give you 10 tribes, but he shall have 1 tribe," the prophecy says. That's Judah. But like I said, Benjamin's kind of tied to Judah in that way. So, or at least was at some point. I didn't go back to look and see if they're taking Simeon into consideration there, which was, I think, in the middle of Judah in a geographical way. But at any rate, Solomon finds out about this, and he immediately pulls a Saul and he wants to kill Jeroboam. But as it unfolded, like I already said, the kingdom ended up going kerplunk. Split in 2, and from that point on, I guess in a geographical sense, it was never the same, because even when Babylon and Greece or Persia and Greece and everybody came in, they were no longer a kingdom anymore. So they were united kingdom, then they were divided kingdom, then they just weren't a kingdom, but they were still separated, and we see that even in the New Testament. Think about the way that the Judeans viewed Samaritans, and the way the Judeans viewed Galileans even. Not quite like they viewed the Samaritans, but we see this maybe even further distinction. We got Galilee, Samaria, and Judea. So what happened in Jeroboam's day really never changed as far as geographically. But it was an unfortunate situation. But what made it really bad was what Jeroboam did with his newfound power. Now, you would think it's easy maybe to on the surface to side with Jeroboam in the Jeroboam versus Rehoboam, because Rehoboam was the dummy, pardon my French, no disrespect, who said, "We're going to raise the taxes, we're going to make it even harder," and sort of set the stage for this to happen. But rather than capitalizing on the faults of Rehoboam, like he could have stood up and said, "Hey, we're going to, lower all the taxes. We're going to make it easier for you. This is what I think should be done." But what Jeroboam ended up doing was basically making Israel an idolatrous nation. So that's the reference whenever those 21 times, and I've got them marked here in the handout, which is very large, by the way. I decreased the font size, still huge, very many pages. I didn't have time to try to edit it down at all. Most of it's about Jezebel, but I did put the 21 references to Jeroboam, who made Israel sin. What makes it such a fascinating discussion about that epitaph, if you will, is how did Jeroboam make Israel sin? He's just one man. Did he just command everybody to sin? No. Well, he's the king, right? So he can tell people what to do. So he just went around and commanding Israel, you got to do this sinful thing, do this. Like Pharaoh, kill all the babies, the baby boys, Hebrew baby boys. Did Jeroboam do that kind of thing? No. How did he make Israel sin? Well, here's what he did. That's why I put sort of in a parenthetical. He did it by his policies. His political policies. And here's why this is such an important point. Political policies do not necessarily make anybody do anything. Now, some political policies might, like pay your taxes, things like that. You have to, or you'll get in trouble. But let's say things like an easy parallel for me morally would be making abortion legal. When a politician's political stance and policy is, we're going to make it so that a woman can kill her baby if she wants to. That politician has not made a single person do a single thing, have they? But by those policies, they have enabled that sin. Now here's how that connects to Jeroboam. What Jeroboam did was he established, among other things, 2 altars to Baal, basically. But it didn't start that way, I don't guess. But 2 altars. Where were the Israelites supposed to worship? Jerusalem. That's where the temple was. That's where the altar was at the temple. I guess the altar was at the holy place. The holy place was in the temple. The temple was in Jerusalem. Thus, you had to worship at Jerusalem. What Jeroboam decided was, that's a big hassle. Going all the way down to Jerusalem, you see, where was Jerusalem? In Judah, which wasn't the tribe that Jeroboam had. So that already created some complications from his perspective. So he thought, it's not practical for us to go worship in Jerusalem. What I'll do is set up an altar, 2 altars, ultra practical for everybody. One in Dan and one in Bethel. One's north, one's south. I can't remember which is which. Politically speaking, makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Go to Jerusalem to worship all the time? We can't do that now because this is not our place. So he set up these 2 places to worship, contrary to God's will in the covenant, and therefore, every single time somebody worshiped at one of those altars or offered an offering on those altars, they were sinning. And thus, Jeroboam made Israel sin because he's the reason those altars were there where they weren't supposed to be. Yeah, Dave? Yes. Yeah, let's make it more, let's update it, and freshen it up, make it more convenient, make it more pleasing, more accessible, more acceptable. Yeah, Joe?
What he did, and the only way you can make people sin, is to separate them from God. So then they cared more about, like Dave was saying, with their convenience, but no longer follow God. Listen to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you have to do today. To get people to sin, you change the name of the sin, then you say everybody's doing it, and then you've got the convenience of everything. And that's what they do. If you stop listening to the truth, you don't listen, you're going to drift away.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely.
Yep. So just to clarify, Bethel is the south, almost the southern extremity of their territory, right at the southern border of Ephraim, which is the northern border of Benjamin. So about as south as they could go. Dan is way, way up there, way up there. I mean, farther north than almost anything that other than Damascus, it's up there near Syria. So it's like these 2 bookends If you're up in Galilee, you can go to Dan. You don't got to come all the way down here. Just go up to Dan. Or if you're in the south and you can't make it to Jerusalem now because of these circumstances, but you can go to Bethel. The problem is, God had commanded them to worship at. He had only one altar. So any other altar is somebody else's altar, and therefore to worship at that altar. So Jeroboam, strictly speaking, didn't make anybody sin. But God said He did. 21 times He made Israel sin. It's worded in almost the exact same way all 21 times. The order may be a little bit different, but ultimately they all say He made Israel to sin. And He did it by His political policies. And He really, His legacy is not great. That's not a great epitaph to have. If that's the tombstone that God gave Jeroboam. Here lies Jeroboam. He made Israel sin. So pretty much, I only have one lesson really for him is the moral and or political nature of the people that we put in power matters. It does matter. In an ideal world, the character of the person in general should have a great impact on whether or not a Christian will vote for them, but especially what their political aspirations are. It matters. It affects the whole nation. None of this, it doesn't matter what they legalize or say is okay. I'm not going to do it. Yeah, I would never abort my baby. So I don't care if they say that a woman can do it or not. I'm not going to do it. So I don't have any qualms or problems voting for them. That should not be the attitude of a Christian. Who is it that's sinning all 21 times that Jeroboam is said to have made Israel sin? Israel. They're the ones. Now, Jeroboam sinned by all kinds of things he did, but in that statement, strictly speaking, Israel's the one who is being said to have sinned by the policies of Jeroboam. So that is something that Christians should really take to heart, that it does matter who. It's not, politics is a game for a lot of people. It shouldn't be for a Christian. It is a matter of national life or death at this point. Now, it didn't used to always be that way because on the moral issues, more or less, either candidate is going to see eye to eye on many of the moral issues, but we live in a different time today, and they could not possibly be farther from one another. Yep.
Unlike Israel, though, we have the Word of God in our hands. And if you know the truth, and you know the adversary that all he does is lie, the first thing you do when you hear something is try to figure out what does God have to say about it. They didn't start off with abortion to begin with, just killing babies. Instead, they told him it was just a zygote. So they changed the word. And you weren't really a baby until you were born.
Yeah.
So when you hear something, you have to know the truth before you can discern the evil that's being put upon you. So it's imperative to know what the Word of God says.
Yeah, the truth is important. All the truth. Whether we're talking about the Word of God or just plain old truth. I mean, life begins at conception is not a biblical truth. That's a scientific fact. Just never underestimate the truth. What are the facts? I would say more than anything else, what does the Bible say should be our number one measuring stick. Number two is, what are the facts? To the Christians, to the Christian mind, those two things should be the most, not the only important things per se, but the most. What are the facts? Because we, Christians and God's people, are encouraged to be reasonable people. We're reasonable, and what that means is not, we can be dealt with. It means we reason things. We like reasons for believing things and doing things, and to be to take into consideration what the facts are, and especially what God's will is key. So political policy does matter, and the reason I say it's different now, that you go back in time far enough, then both political candidates in a two-party system might agree that abortion is wrong. I'm not even going to talk about that, because of course that's an evil that's even unthinkable. But one candidate will say, I think taxes should be this rate, and the other said, I think taxes should be done like this. In those days, it will be absolutely within reason for two Christians to not see eye to eye. I think, well, I kind of like this tax policy, I kind of like this tax policy. Both candidates agree that on all the moral things, but what a lot of Christians today, especially the older generation, many of them don't understand is how much things have changed. It's not like that anymore. It's not just about Democrats like this kind of taxes and Republicans like this kind of taxes and that kind of thing. It's not like that anymore. It is very much a moral thing and a spiritual thing. And the people that are put in power do have a divine effect on the nation they are meant to serve. And Israel and Jeroboam is proof of that. So long after Jeroboam was dead, every time he's brought up almost, he made Israel sin by enacting policies that outlived him majorly. So Israel was still sinning because of Jeroboam long after Jeroboam's dead. That's how important and how impactful the people in power are. And they didn't get to choose, well, I guess in a way they kind of chose Jeroboam, but he's the only one. They didn't choose anybody else, really. Yep.
But to me, this is the scariest verse in the New Testament, in the 2 Thessalonians, when he basically says that those who refuse to love the truth and so be saved, which is the Word of God, therefore God sends them a strong delusion, so that they may believe what is false, in order that all may be condemned. So just like the people of Israel, every person has to make a choice within their life to follow truth. And if you don't listen to what God says, you're going to go crazy. And that's essentially what he's saying. And that's how you have people today that are crazier than Looney Tunes, because they don't know what truth is.
Yeah. That's why an attack on the very concept of truth is so dangerous, because now it's not just a matter of debating what is true. Is this true or is this true? Now these brainwashing camps that we call universities are teaching kids there's no such thing as truth. How can you debate what is true if you're telling kids there's no such thing as truth? It's scary, very scary.
The church is teaching that.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to do
Your truth, my truth.
those people who
Yeah.
heard that man who tried to tell us that the New Testament churches all believe differently and in different ways. And that's not what the Scripture says.
Yeah.
So we are
Don't know where you got that. Any of them that believe differently weren't the New Testament church anymore.
Amen.
So Paul went around teaching them all the same thing, and we even have the record of him saying, this is what I taught, this is what I told the Corinthians, this is what I told the Galatians. I'm telling you what I told the Galatians, do this. When you get done with this letter, you make sure that the Ephesians, you send it to Ephesus so they can read it. And it's very clear that, especially since the same apostle established most of these churches that we read the letters from, or all of them, that we had the letters, inspired letters from.
If they're teaching there's no truth, does that, to me, that'd be saying there's no right or wrong.
Well, yeah, that's part of it. Yeah. But you know what? The self-contradiction, I mean, it's laced with self-contradiction because you can't say there is no truth without believing that there is a truth, because that is a truth. There is no absolute truth, except for the absolute truth that there is no absolute truth. It makes no sense. If it's true that there is no such thing as absolute truth, then it's also true that it's not true that there's no absolute truth. It's insane. But this is what happens when, like Joe referenced, 2 Thessalonians, when people refuse to love the truth and don't believe the truth. These are the kinds of things that will happen. But yeah, it's becoming increasingly difficult to have genuine conversation with people who disagree with you, because it's shut down immediately with that sentiment that, will you believe whatever you want to believe and I'll believe whatever I want to believe. No, I don't play that game. Yeah, I'm going to believe what I want to believe, but I want to believe it because I have reason to believe it, and I have reason to believe it because there are facts and truths that lead to that belief. So, no, there is a right one and a wrong one. It's not true that it's just whatever you want to believe, you go ahead and believe it, and you let me believe what I want to believe. Well, yeah, I'll let you believe what you want to believe, but I'm also going to let you know that you're wrong. Objectively wrong.
God doesn't play that game either.
Yeah, God is the creator of objectivity. He created objective truth. He is the ultimate objective truth in reality. So He doesn't go along with that either.
But that's not the version. People have a different version of God, a version that is like He's timeless, whatever, and that feels so much better, and that's so much easier and more. That tickles the ears better. So
Yeah.
I'd go with that.
Yep. The Bible deals with that too. Time's going to come when they'll have itching ears. They will no longer want to hear the truth. They'll have itching ears and raise up for themselves preachers that will just say whatever they want to say or want to hear. Everybody wants to hear what they want to hear.
And then we are crazy or cold.
No, we're bigots.
Or,
Yeah.
Too judgmental, or
Yeah, that's the thing. You're judgmental.
or we're extremists because we're
You're just some dumb hick. Backwoods country hick. Maybe I'm getting too personal now, but
Yeah.
that's where you're ignorant.
That we're all stupid.
yeah.
South of Chicago, we're all stupids.
Trust me, we know that stereotype. Way further south than Chicago. That's where the really stupid people are. Huh? No, never mind. That's where the incest people are, not the stupid people. Sorry. How many times over this election season did we hear about the uneducated vote? The uneducated vote. Over and over. You know what uneducated vote means? Stupid people. That's what they mean. Yeah. Donald Trump won the uneducated vote. That's because the stupid people voted for him. That's what they mean when they say that. They mean people that didn't go to college. Yeah. Joke's on them. I'm stupid and I didn't vote for Trump. Yeah. Wait a minute. Yeah, he can't vote, so.
That's essentially the way they operate. You don't believe anybody else but me. I'll tell you what the truth is.
Yeah. Which is another self-contradiction. Yeah.
Exactly. Did they call
If there's no such thing as absolute truth, then why are we listening to anything you say? Why are we here in college if there's no such thing as truth? What are we learning here?
And people's attention spans are too short to even fact check or to do a deep dive, because if it's not like instant, clickbait, like I need information right now. If I can't get the information right now, then I'm not even going to look into the truth, like read the full article. I'm just going to go to Florida here and not even Google to make sure it's.
Yeah, that's another problem altogether.
So they're not going to go look at the Bible and see if it's true, because they're not going to look.
Well, the sad thing is the Bible's been so beaten down over the last several decades in our country that nobody associates the Bible with truth at all in anyway. So the last place I'm going to look for the truth is the Bible. Kidding me? But that's another.
in our churches? When people came up with the concept, men wrote these words, because they did, and it started in our churches and destroyed our homes.
Yeah, which is
Fight it back.
another self-contradiction, because if I reject the Bible because it was written by men and men are fallible, then what am I going to use instead? Huh? Yeah, that's the reality. Is it's men literally wrote it, but it didn't come from them. But what other book are they going to use? Do they have a book that's actually from God that we didn't know about? I don't know, because their whole thing is there is no God. So what they're saying is that book that was written by men is not true or trustworthy, but my book that was written by men is trustworthy. So once again, it goes back to you do you, and I'll do me, and I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to discuss it. I don't want to debate it, because it makes me have to use my brain that God gave me, and I don't want to do that. I just want to believe. I just want to believe. Ignorance is bliss. I just want to go on.
Grass is green, and there's no other reason for me to tell you that it's green. I'm not going to tell you it's blue. It's green.
In Kentucky, it is. It's the bluegrass state. That's what. I didn't make the slogan. It's a state slogan. Okay, sorry. I repent in sackcloth and ashes. We're not getting to Jezebel. If you want to get to know her, she's up here in the front. I do encourage you to look through or read this. I told you that the author was sexist because, I mean, you can see how much more detail the women got than the men. Well, Jezebel, yeah, she's a pretty notorious character. I'll just share this. Oh, wait, it's gone. The irony of the meaning of her name. You learn something every day.
I wouldn't take writing more about Jezebel as a compliment to females.
Yeah, not necessarily. Jezebel is in no way a compliment to females, period.
Well, Revelation just threw them all together.
But her name, this is just irony of all ironies, her name means chaste, or free from carnal connection, which could not be more inappropriate for the woman that Jezebel was. She was a she-devil, that's what the book calls her, and she really fulfilled that to its absolute brink.
Situational irony in the Bible.
Yes, one of those, I mean, I guess we can thank her parents or whoever named her, but maybe they had high hopes for their little girl. She didn't live up to her name. She is the antithesis of her name. But I'll tell you, there was a song written in the 70s that we could probably sum up the lessons about Jezebel is, if you want to be a happy man, marry an ugly woman. Okay? Have you ever heard that song? I think it was in the 70s. No, it's not a Kentucky thing.
I thought that too.
That's why I'm so happy, you see? Wait a minute, I meant depressed. Oh, don't worry, she knows.
So maybe it's a translation.
What's that?
I said in English, belle means beautiful.
It does? Oh yeah, Belle.
Translation that's
It's
messed up.
probably French or something.
Hey, there were beautiful women in the Bible that were wonderful, like Esther.
Yes.
True.
Sarah, Rebecca.
Was she beautiful?
Yeah, it says so.
It says Sarah was?
That's why Abraham lied about her.
Oh, well,
Don't you
okay.
remember?
Well,
He knew
we're not getting to the S's for a while, so.
You're right, said Kathy, most of it.
Just to be clear, we have a long-standing understanding, Tabby and myself, of I go along with all of her self-deprecation. I don't play the games anymore of, no, you look great, you're beautiful. When she says I look ugly or fat, I say, yeah, you're right. You know, you're absolutely right. So I just go along with it. I'm done.
Does that break them of it, or do they continue?
Does that what?
Does that break
It doesn't in this case, no. What?
Oh, I don't know who to trust now.
Number one rule is when you let the pastor what you must treat.
Yeah.
It's true. It's an absolute truth that I do go. I don't play the games. But I'll leave it at that. She knows what I think, and it doesn't go along with that song necessarily. Well, it kind of does, maybe. That's why I'm so sad. What?
I said, you chose her. That tells you, actually, it's very complimentary of you
That I chose her?
somebody that good.
I think it was because I believed a strong delusion.
It's okay. You're using the attitude.
See, that's an insult in itself. It's like, it's okay. Somebody probably thinks you're beautiful because it's in the eye of the beholder. Everybody knows she is. That's why.
Go someplace else tonight.
I know. That's why I don't play along with the.
That's why he could do it.
The couch is open. There's waters in the fridge.
Everybody thinks she's 16, and everybody thinks she's.
We were talking about Jezebel.
You could see why my mind would go to you. I mean, I didn't mean you can see it. I meant it's interesting that it did go to you. But anyway, it's because I brought up that song, and I had to try to redeem myself with the bluegrass joke. So, well, Jezebel was a terrible woman. She was the terrible woman of all terrible women. That's why her name is basically a byword for all the wickedness. I mean, scheming, power hungry, dominating of her husband, who was apparently a pretty spineless and laughable, and basically it's ironic that we paired her, even though we're not getting to talk too much about her, with Jeroboam, because not only does her story sort of begin right when his ends, but she really helped even more so turn Israel into a heathen, idolatrous nation with Baal worship, because that's where she came from. She was a Sidonian princess, and they were very adamant Baal worshipers, and her father was a high priest of Baal or some such false god, and she made strides to make Baal worship the national religion of Israel. So she sort of took Jeroboam's missteps and took them to the next level. Yeah.
Was she the first woman reported to paint herself?
That she is the basis of that expression, paint her face like a painted Jezebel, which is in the. I think I may have edited that part out to fit it on 6 pages, but it is. I did remember reading that in here that she is. The basis of the expression of like a painted Jezebel, because she painted her right before she died, her horrendous death, prophesied death. She was a great grandmother at that point, still hadn't lost any of her vanity, and she got her hair all fixed up, painted herself all up nice. I don't know what her intentions were, but maybe she just knew she was about to die and wanted to go out like a queen. So the 16th century England, whenever that expression was coined, like a painted Jezebel, was a time whenever painting your face was synonymous with a woman of bad morals, a loose woman kind of thing. So it doesn't really apply today, because if you think about, most women wear makeup to some extent, so it's not exactly the same translation. But in that day, and in that Jezebel, a painted Jezebel was an insult to talk about a woman of that sort of character. Unchaste, the exact opposite of her name, ironically. Unchaste woman would be the kind of woman that would paint her face in that way. So a painted Jezebel.